Welcome again to the Unlearning Curve. My name is Stuart Delony. I'm joined with Karl Forehand and also JD Forehand from halfway around the world. The Unlearning Curve is a place where we talk about anything from mental health to deconstruction to what's going on in the world and other faith bullshit stuff that we love to dive into. If you want to reach out to us, email us at theunlearningcurvepodcast@gmail.com. If that's correct. And for our first session, we're hopping in. We have King Karl. King Karl is going to be talking to us about resilience, I believe.
I prefer Karl the Great.
Karl the Great, okay.
Yeah, let's talk about resilience. So maybe what resilience is not I'll kind of say that as we go through here, but resilience is not just positive thinking. It's not just, fake it till you make it and those kind of things. But when we experience adversity or toxic stress, our nervous systems hold on to trauma as a warning about future perceived dangers. So we experience something, if it doesn't get resolved or cared for and those kind of things, then it kind of serves as a warning system in our body. It's our body's natural response to unresolved events. So it's designed. It's there for when we're actually in danger. Mm-hmm. It's stuff that feels like this is putting you in danger, and you're going to, something's going to hurt you again or whatever. So that's a natural response that we have. But resilience is our ability to recover from those experiences and for our bodies to make the necessary shifts to integrate trauma rather than bury it. So I know that makes sense to you guys. Am I explaining that right?
In my mind, sometimes because I loved how you brought in the idea of integrating and dealing with the trauma, but also sometimes resilience isn't just surviving and keeping moving on, like how your body can keep you alive in traumatic, horrible situations. Mm-hmm. That can also be the resilience. It may also mean, as a person who's dealing with unresolved trauma in their bodies and other stuff from the past, I think, resilience isn't always, I would say, is it always integration? Or is resilience mainly leaning on the survival and how it helps you continue on?
Yeah, JD may be able to answer that, but I just think it's, say the question again. I don't know if I got it.
Yeah, no, because usually I think of resilience as survival. It's like those things that have kept you alive through traumatic situations. You were describing it as also the ability to be able to integrate that trauma and deal with it and kind of process it.
Yeah, I think
my question was, is resilience just the survival, or is it also the integrated and dealing with it stuff?
I think, unfortunately, what you're talking about in the first part is what we do in religion. It's kind of, we want to power through things. And resilience is not just powering through things, because when you do that, that's when you bury it, right? And we make excuses for God, and we make excuses for ourselves, and we push things down. And as Laura said, then they come out sideways one day.
Yeah.
They're unresolved. They're still trying to respond to a trauma that hasn't been resolved. And so resilience is a little bit more conscious and involved than that. And you and I were talking, Stuart, about some of our struggles. We're not going to tell you all of those struggles before we started taping, but sometimes we have to encounter that trauma, that feeling, that stuff that's still buried down inside of it. We have to face it, meet it, encounter it, talk about it, those kind of things, so that it can. Eugene Gendlin said, "What is unfelt is unchanged." But when you feel it, when you experience it again, and Peter Levine calls it somatic experiencing. When you experience it again, then you can integrate it where it's not, you're still going to experience triggers, but now you're able to go on with your life and you're more conscious of those things. JD's looking like he doesn't believe me or something over there.
No. I mean, I agree. I think it's also kind of like, to your point, like if you don't, to actually be resilient, you would have to deal with that stuff, because otherwise, like, again, like you said, it comes out sideways or it rears its head again. And if you're not dealing with it, then you're not processing through it. And so you're not being more resilient. You're just putting it off to a later date, essentially. So, yeah, no, I think I mostly agree.
So I would say sometimes traditional therapy doesn't always help that, because it just keeps revisiting the trauma and we keep rehearsing the trauma. That's a little different than dealing with it directly. There was a guy named, I'm looking at it here. It's called the 7 C's of Resilience. And again, sometimes we don't like lists and things like that are axioms or whatever. But the 7 C's that his name is Kenneth Ginsburg, 7 C's. So first of all is competence. I'll just go through these real quick. Competence, the ability to handle situations effectively by developing skills, solving problems, learning from your mistakes. This is the one I'd be careful of, is confidence, a solid belief in your own abilities built upon experiences of competence and success. As long as it's built on competence and successes, not just positive attitude. That's what I would say about confidence. We can be confidently ignorant, or
True.
confidently fail, those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
It does mention connection, and anybody that's ever listened to me knows my feelings about connection. There can be faux communities and things that don't really help. Character, strong moral character, ethical foundation, including integrity, empathy, and a sense of right and wrong. So what our current administration has none of that.
Mm-hmm.
The opposite of the current administration. Contribution, feeling that you can make a difference, coping, healthy strategies and skills for managing stress, disappointment, and difficult emotions, and then control. Understand that you have choices and can influence your life and environment rather than feeling helpless.
Mm.
So, your thoughts?
So these are the 7 C's of resiliency, of kind of like what you need to be able to be resilient. Is that
That's
the
the
framing?
way I understood it.
Okay.
So, he calls these things to build inner strength for overcoming challenges. If they were not cultivated in our youth, we may need to invest significantly to rebuild or restore them. So those are just some of the kind of hallmarks or points in building resiliency.
And I like how you're talking about it too, because it's not like I am resilient, versus like I feel like it's more of it's a process. It's a continuing process, is what I'm hearing too, of being able to gain these. Because I'm going through this list, of going like, am I resilient as well too? Well, I have some of these I'm terrible with.
Yeah.
But I know I'm working on it. But I know a lot of these I'd be like, yeah, okay, I'm good at this. And so I guess seeing that this is kind of that we're on some sort of a spectrum of trying to get better as well. Because oftentimes religion taught us to be like, it's like my brain was doing the checklist. Like, am I this? Am I this? Am I this? And then I'm this. And, like church taught us to be so binary with these things, which our emotions are not, they don't work that way. Trauma doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Unfortunately, religion's not very good at teaching resilience. Promises miracle cures and help from a deity that doesn't always come through. Some types of prayer can be soothing and comforting to us, especially when we pray together. But praying for an automatic cure doesn't make us more resilient. It makes us more dependent on a deity, and a deity that we often admit we don't even understand or know whether he's communicating with us, or we have a purpose and plan, but we can't figure out what the plan is. And so I'm codependent on someone that's not dependable, and that just makes it worse.
That almost even sounds like that's distraction and delusion. It's not actually, because we're just like, when you try to bypass things like that, or we're assuming a prayer is going to fix it, and we're then shoving off the accountability of like the hard work of fixing it onto magical sky god, and then hoping for something to change. I don't know, that does that. I feel like that leads to probably more mental health problems, and spiraling downward, because you're putting a hope in something that, it's not you doing the work. You're just hoping in a magical way. And I feel like that just leads to disillusionment. I think that can lead to a lot more insanity as well too.
Yeah, and you're not building any of the coping skills that would be necessary to, when that does fall through, to actually deal with it yourself. You're hoping that the flying spaghetti monster helps you, or possibly one part of that could work within the church is the community aspect. But we all know how the community aspect of church can be a fickle beast.
Strings attached.
I was at school yesterday, and as I was leaving, it was so cold. And when I'm with my stroke recovery, when I get cold, it tenses everything up, and my arm starts to pull in, and my leg gets stiff. And so I had to warm up my car. So I sat and talking to the secretary, who I knew was a Christian-y person, and she I was expecting her to go, well, God's going to get you through it, or, all of those kind of things. But she actually said, man, that's tough, isn't it? And that was more of what I needed. And I think what you're describing about in reaction to that is there's just not enough time. Churches are an organization, and the organization comes first. There's never enough time in their schedule to deal with issues, right? I mean, if I came to church and they really met my needs, they would need 2 or 3 people to spend the whole hour with me. You know what I mean?
But it's funny you're framing it like there's never enough time. That would imply that was even like a priority,
right?
Because if it was something we cared about, we would schedule it. Like then there would be time for it. If that was, if it wasn't just about the show, and if it was like, oh yes, let's bring the hurting people here and let's try to not hurt them more. Let's actually try to help them and lessen the trauma. No, that is not in any of the sphere of what they're going for. They may tell you that, but they do not care about that whatsoever. So it isn't that they don't have enough time; they don't care.
And to what you were talking about earlier, Dad, is like it would require them to have built up the skills to like deal with these things and to be resilient, to sit with you in that, or using the example that you used of like just empathizing with someone. And that's not usually what the church teaches. It teaches us bypassing and God works in mysterious ways and all the kind of platitudes that we like to, that like churches, etc., and other organizations do this too, but just kind of spit out in order to just help us get past that and not actually have to sit in those uncomfortable situations where you do build like the tools and the like skills to be resilient, to get through those things and actually come through it better on the other side.
In my case, I spent 50 years bypassing and about 10 years healing. So I wasn't too surprised the other day when I kind of had a spiral and went through about a week of misery, but slowly we're gaining the skills. I was going to say what I wrote here. Resilience grows over time when we understand the situations that cause our problems and take the necessary steps to resolve and integrate them into our nervous systems. In the definition, I noticed the phrase build inner strength, which tells me that resilience will never happen by being passive. It's something I have to understand and exercise to develop strength, which is described as being within me. I don't know what that means. I just wrote it a week or so ago. So, long story short, do the hard and necessary inner work. There's no shortcuts. There's no easy answers. There are things that work, though, and there are things that are effective, and there are resilient people.
But I think also that the note is this is messy as hell. At least that's my experience. Like building resilience, it's not clean, it's messy, it can be ugly. In all this stuff coming out, like, I mean, you were mentioning you had a spiral last week. I've been going through a period where with my therapist, unrooted some deep childhood trauma, and it was wonderful and cathartic, and we're crying and ugly crying together, and it's great. And I was like, oh, good, healing, come on. No, trauma was like, cool, you open the door? You've been storing this down deep for so long? Yeah, so randomly, you'll just start dry heaving for no reason. Randomly, I'll start crying sometimes. It could be happy. It could be sad. But it's that trauma, once you pushed it down, when it comes back, it comes back. It comes back, and it's messy.
Yeah.
But it's good. But you need to do that in order to, get healthy.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not dealing with it, then it's just going to get worse and worse. Because you don't learn the skills, and then it piles on top of each other, and you just keep pushing it down until, then it's a real Pandora's box.
So I wrote please note that we are creatures who need connection.
Yeah.
We need connection with nature, we need connection with the world, and we need connection with other human beings. In fact, I'm not even sure if we need God if we have connection with human beings. Even though we need...
but if 2 or 3 are gathered in my name...
I'd take 2 or 3, but not 100 or 5,000.
That's true.
Even though we need to become comfortable with solitude and learn to be alone, we also need to build more intentional communities that truly foster resilience, which implies that they will be safe and they'll be supportive. So we really need that. A circle of people like the secretary that said, "Oh, that's hard. That must be rough. Not God's going to take care of it, or we'll understand it better by and by, or we want to be great when we get to heaven when the rapture happens." That Stuart's been writing about.
Yeah, can't wait. No, but it is. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's a lot of that faith has taught us is just to push it aside, and that just God will fix it, and that all that does is it just like JD had said. I think you don't deal with it. You push it down, and then
So after we got out of ministry and we were going to go to a church. We went to a church that's about an hour away. I remember when we first went there, Laura was saying, "Oh, that felt, the music, oh, that felt good, right?" But it wasn't very many weeks after that where we were having conversations on the way home, getting in arguments about, "I don't really want to be here. No, I don't want to go there," because just that drug of just like going to a concert or listening to music, it does that, but that's not enough. It's not touching and sometimes we do get emotional in church and so on, but we really need intentional community and people that have time for us, right? And spend the time. So
because sometimes, because I don't know if people would articulate it this way, but I feel like church gives people an opportunity to step outside of the world, kind of escapist. And I think there's healthier forms of escapism. Go for a run, listen to music, watch a movie, do something that doesn't somehow just inoculate your brain into telling you that like everything that you're going to believe once you leave this building, it may or may not be true. Yeah. Those feelings of trauma you have could be demons. It's easier to blame demons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if I really want to say this, but I will. And Greg Locke is probably the prime example of this. So take Greg Locke, and to some degree, all churches are like that. And here's my supposition. It's just a supposition. The churches and pastors sometimes trigger people on purpose. They may not even know that's what they're doing, but intentionally trigger people. And then you come forward and someone puts their arm around you and they help you regulate. And they go, "Oh, see, God came through. And God was really at work because he convicted you." And then you came down and we put our arm around you and you felt better and you felt connected. So they created a problem that they solved, and then they took credit for. It's just exactly like Trump. Create a problem, create tariffs that traumatize people and take away people's livelihood, and then remove the tariffs and then take credit for solving the problem. Like with the farmers, I'll give you, I took these billions of dollars in tariffs, now I'll give you a little bit of $1 billion back and take credit for saving the farms. Right?
That's an abusive relationship, right?
It's abusive.
I hit you, but honey, I'll buy you some flowers, and I'll never do it again.
And abusive, and it doesn't just happen in churches, by the way, but it's in politics and our everyday lives too.
Yeah, because if you really start to think of it, like you can look at a church service, and I'm writing a piece about this. I want to talk to you guys off the air about it.
All right.
But on this idea that like a worship service, if it's like what you would do walking someone through torture. If you were trying to torture somebody to get a result that you want from them, which is like answers, compliance, whatever, it's a similar flow. It's a similar flow. It's breaking people down and then being their buddy, and then giving them answers and saying, "Oh no, you can trust me." It's very similar. Which also then would tell us that all of that whole system would just build more trauma. So then if we have been traumatized, this may feel like home. For those of us that have like been around like, abusive and people that that traumatize us as children, these situations feel familiar, and we can go into these situations knowing like, at least I know how to survive. I need to be in here. I need to be quiet. I need to be a people pleaser. I need to make these folks happy. That's how I find my belonging. And so again,
trauma bonding.
Yep. Trauma bonding while giving you more trauma. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like we're creating trauma together too. So that's even, yeah.
I started mentoring a kid last year that was getting into some arguments and fights with a certain kid, and talked to his teacher this year, said he's doing better. And then she said, "Well, that other kid left. And I'm like, "Well, there's going to be more difficult people in the world. You just can't remove difficult people, right?
No.
He has to learn some skills and learn how to regulate himself and learn how to be more resilient, probably, and he was taken up for his friends is how he saw it, right? Which is honorable and good and so on, but you still have to take responsibility and not just remove yourself from the situation. Saying that, some of us have been in church that was probably my whole mission of going into ministry, was to reform it, make it more Jesus-like, right? Or loving and empathetic and so on. And I didn't make it, very discouraged. And then now people from former churches call me and say I'm not a true Christian and I shouldn't be convincing other people away from the fold.
Yeah. Which only tells you you're doing the right thing. When folks that are inside their own insulated systems are getting upset at you who exist outside their insulated systems, and they're kind of like, hey, buddy, stop it. That's just sad at that moment.
Yeah.
I was just like, how like, what a limp dick approach to faith that is.
Yeah.
Like, Karl, you're asking questions. You're ruining our Christian thing we're doing over here. Your questions, we can't handle them. Be quiet, Karl.
Especially with American Christians, I'm always like, man, your God is fucking pussy. Like, amazingly weak. Like, can barely do anything. Like, arguably Satan is more powerful. Like, that's embarrassing.
Yeah. A God that
American
constantly
Christians
needs
get a better
defending by
God.
people.
Yeah. The God of the universe needs me, some fucking idiot, to like defend him, and he's not more convincing than some asshole. Like, your God sucks. Sorry.
Come on, yeah. Whip out some smiting, God. Do something. Instead, we get like Franklin Graham defending the faith, and we're like, oh, yay.
Actually,
Our God is an awesome God.
Trump's another good example of that, because Trump fights against weaker people. He doesn't take the fight to the big bully. He finds Venezuela or some small country that barely has an army, and that's who he's bullying around. Anyway, that was connected somehow.
No,
Maybe
but in a certain sense, I like that. Couldn't that be said the same for God? Isn't God's always punching down. God's always being a bully. What's up with all this?
Yeah.
What kind of example is God giving us?
Yeah, and if his enemies disagree with him, he destroys them all, wipes out the population.
Well, unless it's the devil, though, in which case he just lets them fuck with people, like Job, for instance. Like, hey, literally the person causing all of the evil and harm on the earth. Yeah, go ahead and fuck with one of my most loyal servants. Like, dickhead. The guy's a dickhead. I don't know what else to say. Like, it's, Yeah, and he won't take out the number one villain, supposedly, is Satan, and God won't take care of him. He hasn't. He never did.
But that whole thing just sounds like Greek and Roman gods, just like wagering over humans, like, ha ha ha, like, oh, ha ha ha, let's just do this.
Yeah.
I think if you're looking for
spiritual oligarchy
in Scripture, you won't really find resilience. You'd have to piece together some stuff and kind of bend some stuff to make it. The Bible doesn't teach resilience. It just teaches, well, you get on the right team and everything will be okay magically.
But Karl, we talked about this. The Bible teaches us it's like the instruction manual for life. That's what it is, right? Basic instructions before we leave Earth.
Yeah,
it reads like a manual. It totally does. And I'm so happy. Yeah.
Totally does not.
No, not at all. It's
there are parts that do read like a manual, but the Christians don't fucking follow any of that shit. Like, don't wear mixed fibers and don't eat seafood, and like, it's like, okay, well, all the stuff that is like kind of formulaic is like this shit that everyone's just like, yeah, we don't, unless it's about gay stuff, then that's we follow that one, because fucking homos, god damn it.
So love your neighbor is pretty clear, right? Then it's mixed in with
unless they're gay again, maybe a different color than me or something.
Because I mean, it's technical neighbor, like from our gated communities. Like, I know my white neighbors, right? My white neighbors.
If they can afford the house next to me, then they're my neighbor. Yeah.
See?
I mean, I do think all Christians should go be like friends with like lots of like drug addicts and prostitutes, but I don't think we're gonna get that one in 2026, unfortunately.
No, because I feel like they've been, we've see, again, none of this has to do with mental health, and so many people dealing with trauma and mental health issues within the church actually got healing, not like you're healed, not any of that and that kind of bullshit stuff, or like baby, not any of that kind of other crap either. If they actually got something that was physical, that isn't like navel gazing or look into the heavens, if we were actually serious about healing and like in doing what Jesus talked about, like making heaven on earth, start with mental health, and I think we could see huge issues like being transformed like right now in our country. We have. I mean, how many churches could turn into places where they would turn these into like mental health factories where people could come in and get health, and it would be beautiful. But no, we won't do that because we want to keep putting the show on.
Right.
Yep.
Faux show.
I think it's about that money. Because helping people is not super profitable.
No.
As literally the Bible says, where Jesus was like, sell all your shit and just like follow me around walking through the desert, because that's what we're going to do if we really want to make a difference. But it's a lot easier to keep all your money.
Yeah. Capitalism is fun. Depending on which
if you're
side
winning
of the sword
game,
you are.
yeah. It can be if you either play the game well or rig the game, which it's usually the latter.